The reason why I want to make this video is because I know that when I was becoming a professional artist, I had no idea where to start. I was all over the place. I didn't know what order I should learn things in. I knew I needed to learn anatomy. I knew I needed to learn style. These were just vague ideas floating around in my head that I was hearing all over YouTube and stuff, but I had no idea where to really start. I didn't know how to structure my learning experience. And so that's what this video is all about. Your belief will either propel you or it's going to hold you back. I'm actually gonna steal this from Tony Robbins. I hope he doesn't mind. So down here, we're gonna have belief. So we got potential, and then over here in this corner, we have action. And then down here, we have the result. So basically all of your results, they're all gonna start right here with belief, right? And they're gonna move on to your potential, and that's gonna move on to action. So the actions you're going to take because you perceive potential, and then your actions are going to move down to your results. It's just going to feed back into your beliefs that when you do something, when you take action, you believe that you're going to get better results. So this is really a cycle. So what I mean by that is that your beliefs are going to feed into each one and come back to the belief, right? And so if you don't believe in yourself, then you're probably not going to have very high perceived potential, meaning that like if you don't think that you have potential to become a character designer, you're probably not going to take action and try to become a character designer. The people you surround yourself with are going to be very important to your process of becoming a professional artist. So if you are surrounded by people that keep telling you that you can't do it, it's really going to hold you back. When you have people around you that are projecting their capabilities onto you, they're going to tell you you can't be an artist or you shouldn't be an artist. But the thing is like they have no idea. They've never even looked into that industry. They don't even know what's going on in there or what's even going on inside of you, your potential, your work ethic, and it's up to you to make sure that you know what you're capable of, and you have to push through that. Every image, every pattern, everything that you can remember is just like a little book on a shelf, and you can pull that out, look at it, and draw it. So we need to build up a strong visual library. So let's say I wanted to learn how to draw characters of a certain style. I would find a character of that certain style and I would draw it. So I just copy it. So I'd just set it right next to my paper, I'd look at it, and I would copy it. Then I would go ahead and take it all away, get a new blank sheet of paper, and try to redraw that. Try to remember as best I could. And it would usually suck. It would be okay, but it would like not look like the original. It wouldn't look very good at all. But then I would go ahead and bring the reference photo back, get a new sheet of paper, and copy it again. But this time what's happening is that I familiarized myself with the image so well the first time I drew it, that then when I tried to redraw it, I was able to see exactly where my mistakes were. Then I can take that away and try drawing it again. And usually that second time of drawing it without reference is gonna look pretty freaking good. The hippocampus is the place where your memories are basically created. Your memories are stored all over your brain in tiny little fragments, and when you call upon a memory, it's pulling from all these little fragments and putting them all back together. Then there's memory consolidation. And what this is after you experience something, so let's say, for example, you went to your grandma's house when you were a child, and you can remember all these details, or at least you think you remember all these details. After you experience that, your brain is going to play that forwards and backwards and fast forward it, and it's going to play in all these different ways, and it's going to basically build up this memory inside of your head. But the more you can pay attention and the more you can kind of draw something over and over again, you're studying an image, and then you're trying to remember what that image looks like, and then you're going back and forth. And so that way you're kind of teaching your brain like, hey, this is so important, don't forget it. So as a character designer, what I really want you to remember about line is that it's all about that line quality and the confidence of your lines, right? So for example, we can have a thin line like that, or we can have a thick line, right? And then that thick line can get thinner. And so that's your line quality, right? How thick or thin. The other thing, like I said, the actual confidence of your lines. And what I mean by that is maybe you're doing a sketch and you're doing something like this, right? You're doing all these little sketchy lines and you're not actually committing to the line that you're trying to create. If I draw a line with confidence, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go like this in one fell swoop. I'm just gonna try to draw it as crisp and cleanly in one move as possible. Next is going to be shape. The thing you need to understand about shape is that everything is built out of shapes. This form right here, this human form, can be broken up into simple shapes, right? Her head could just be broken up into a circle. Her upper chest could be broken up into kind of a rectangle, right? Her bottom could be broken up into another rectangle, or maybe more of like a trapezoid. Arms are basically rectangle, trapezoid, right? So I'm breaking this all down into simple shapes. This is how artists think, and you need to learn how to do this. This is going to be a huge important part of being able to draw well and draw character designs well, is breaking things down to their simple shapes. The next thing is going to be form. So form is kind of the next level up from shape. So instead of breaking things down into their simple shapes, you're breaking them down into their simple forms. So they're three-dimensional forms. Most people can draw simple shapes, but how do you draw simple forms? You know, can you draw a cylinder like this, a tapered cylinder? Can you draw a cone? So perspective is just kind of like, let's just talk about it in its simplest form, where you have one point. If you've ever taken an art class, you've probably already done this before, but you could draw two lines coming off that, right? I could draw really any shape at the end of that I want, curve that out on the other side, right? And it's basically moving back to this, which is called the vanishing point. Perspective gets a lot more complicated than that, but you need to understand perspective because that's going to allow you to draw a lot more realistic character designs because you're going to be able to actually draw them in perspective. The next thing you need to learn about is values. So values are just basically the lightness or the darkness of an image. Black is going to be the darkest value and white is going to be the lightest value, and everything in between is just another value. The easiest way to think about this is white is going to be highlights, or lighter colors are going to be highlights. Blacks and darker grays or darker colors are going to be your shadows typically, and all the color in the middle, or all the mid-tones is what they're called, that's going to be kind of more of like things like your skin tones, or just like the neutral state, unless something is an actual color. So let's say I'm wearing a black shirt, well then that's just probably going to be black for the most part. There might be like some darker grays in there for the highlights. There's kind of two schools of thought when it comes to anatomy. There is the artist's anatomy, and then there's actual anatomy. And for now, while you're trying to learn to become a character designer, I recommend that you don't even worry about real anatomy, okay? You don't really need to know too much about the muscles or what they're called or what's going on under here. I just want you to think about anatomy more in terms of simplified forms. Her leg here is just a cylinder, and her calf is just a tapered cylinder. Her arms are cylinders. Her body could be broken down into more of a cube shape or rectangular cube. You know, her head could be broken down into a sphere with a cone poking off the tip for a chin. So we want to really start learning how to see the human form in simplified forms. But I do want to leave you with something that you can actually use. This is a trick that I use and a lot of artists use, which is just trace over human forms, human anatomy. You know, like you're going to learn so much from that. When you trace over anatomy and break it down into its simple forms, you learn so much. Well, let's first start by talking about the gesture. The gesture is, to break it down in the simplest form, I'm not going to get too into it, but I want you to think of gesture as the movement, right? And the movement is usually broken down into what's called a line of action. The main movement is kind of like this, right? You could go in there and say like, oh, and she's also got like this right here, that curve, and she's also got a straight line here, right? So the line of action can sometimes be straight, it can be curved, depending on what it is. If somebody's just standing there straight, there is really no action, right? There's no movement or anything like that. So I want you to think of gesture as that line of action. You know, what's the movement of your character design? The next is the pose. The pose is really important because the pose is kind of telling a story. It's telling them what the character is doing. So I like to think of pose as action. If somebody's running, you can tell they're running because their hands are in fists. One arm might be up here and the other one might be back here, and they're like lunging towards the camera. One foot is towards the viewer and one foot is way further back. So I like to think of pose as the action. You're trying to establish that action. And then emotion is just going to be things like facial expression, but also the posture of your character. Facial expressions obviously are going to tell what kind of mood your character is in. story and costume. And I also kind of include hairstyle with costume. And so this can consist of everything from things like their history, so their scars. They might have a scar on their eye or a scar on their arm or something like that. Or maybe they have tattoos. You need to learn how to research. If you want something to be historically accurate or somewhat based off of a culture, you need to be able to go out there and research it. So the internet is a great place for this. Books are a great place for this. I love Pinterest, which maybe you're doing a character that's supposed to be inspired by samurais, right? Well, if you're just kind of making stuff up, it's not really going to evoke that samurai aesthetic. But if you go learn about samurais and what they wore and what their swords look like and all these different, or katanas, you're going to be able to take all of this information and actually apply it to your character design and make that character feel so much more real and tell such a more authentic story. You also need to think about what's the emotion it's evoking. If you want to draw a female character that's supposed to seem really innocent and sweet, then you probably don't want to put her in some sort of a pirate costume with all these belt buckles and guns and whatever, Good art is all about simplifying. And even if you think that there's art out there that's overly complex, I'm telling you, in a lot of ways, it's been simplified from real life, and that's why it looks so appealing. And so when it comes to costume and hair, you really want to sort of be able to break these things down into like really simple shapes. Let's just say an afro, for example. An afro could just be looked at as kind of more of a circle. But the hair can be broken down into simple shapes, and you really want to start thinking about that, because what that does is it allows you to make a much more iconic looking character when you can break down their hairstyles, their costume into simple shapes. Your characters, through their costume and hairstyle, should be able to be identified through their silhouette, right? The easier it is to identify a character through their silhouette, the stronger that character design is going to be. It's going to look a lot more iconic, a lot more recognizable. So style is the final step or major step to character design, because you really can't develop your own style or really get good at mimicking other styles until you've kind of achieved all the things up to this point. So all the other 6 steps. So what is style? What I've come to understand about style when it comes to being a character designer is it's really about combining other people's ideas and styles. Nobody's really ever truly original. Everything is based off of somebody else's ideas or a combination of ideas. Things aren't actually made up of lines, right? Like there's not a line down the edge of my arm like there would be in a drawing. So you are stylizing reality basically when you're doing character designs. And so that's the other half of style, is learning how to simplify. That's really what style is. You're trying to interpret reality and change it, right? This is the simplest way you can think of what style actually is. This is kind of the last final building block of being a character designer, because this is how you know you're a true master, is when you can either mimic a style, so you can pick up a style very easily and start drawing it and recreating these characters in different poses, different things with that same look, the same style. If you want to start to really understand style and where it came from, if you look at Japanese art, ancient Japanese art, you'll see that this was the beginning of character design. This was the beginning of anime and manga. Any type of ancient art, you're going to start to see how humans started to break down reality into simple pictures. Even cave drawings, when you really think about it, that's a style. If an artist needed to create that for a movie, they would have to be able to go and mimic that style. Like how are they simplifying reality down to its essence? My name is Jason Batchelor, and if you're interested in learning how to design and draw your own characters, well, I actually offer a bunch of courses on this. You can click the link in the description, and that's going to take you straight to the website where you can check it out and see if it's something for you. I've been teaching art for 8 years now, and I would love to be your teacher as well. Check out my other videos if you want to learn more about character design and just drawing and art in general. Thanks for watching.